I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never gonna keep me down.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Hector Montalvo. This show is dedicated to asking tough questions for you, the viewers. We bring you their responses, and we let you decide. Joining us here today at our MCTV studios, we have two candidates for Governor's Council. We have candidate for Governor's Council, Rich Mitchell, and alongside of him, we have Joe Ureneck. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Hector.
Why the Governor's Council? I'll ask both of you guys that same question, but we'll start with you, Rich. Why the Governor's Council?
Well, the Governor's Council is responsible for approving judges that the governor wants to appoint in the state of Massachusetts. So all judges, probate, family court, trial court, appeals court, everything. And today, we have a major problem in the criminal justice system and the court system, where we're getting a lot of judges in that aren't good judges, that justice is not really being served effectively or well to the people of the Commonwealth. So.
And Joe, why the Governor's Council? We'll get back to that specific, but why the Governor's Council for you, sir?
Well, I second everything that Rich just said. There's a big problem in the courts right now, and for myself, I became involved in the Governor's Council because I saw how badly men and fathers are being treated in the courts. The problem starts, of course, with the legislature and the laws they pass, but in the courts, judges have a lot of discretion as to how they will implement the laws passed by the legislature. If they're going to enforce laws that are unjust and put men in prison and take children away from their parents, there's something wrong with that judge if he doesn't step back and say due process is not being served. So I started going to the Governor's Council a couple of years ago to monitor how they were approving these individuals who eventually would become a judge, and I was simply astounded at the lack of thorough vetting and investigation of the people who are becoming judges in the state. It really is a process that needs to be totally reformed.
How does someone become a judge in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, besides going to that particular Governor's Council?
So the process is you start with filling out a form. So if you want to become a judge, then you fill out a form, and there's a JNC, the Judicial Nominating Committee, that the governor puts into place. And then once you fill out the report, you're interviewed by a subsection of the JNC in your region. They go through your background, talk to you, and then nominate you or not to the greater membership of the Judicial Nominating Committee. And then they'll take a vote on you and either recommend you to the governor or not.
Who's made up of this committee? Is it the people, the public, or?
No, not at all. If I may jump in here. The JNC was first formed by executive order by Michael Dukakis in 1976. At that time, he had a pretty good executive order. It was only 2 pages. Now it runs after succeeding governors have changed and revised it. It's up to perhaps 25 pages. But Mike Dukakis did a very good thing when he instituted the Judicial Nominating Committee. He limited the number of lawyers on the then 11-member body to less than half. So a minority of the JNC could only be lawyers, but the majority had to be regular citizens. Now it's all lawyers, 100% lawyers, and it's 21 or 23 individuals who are on the JNC. And so it's part of the problem where the courts in general and the nominating process in particular is controlled by the legal industry. And the general public has no say whatsoever in how the people who are going to be on the courts in the state of Massachusetts.
Now, when you say legal industry, most people will take that to be lawyers. Basically, that's the industry that's controlling these committees?
Yes, it's all lawyers. So yeah, completely all lawyers. Yeah, bar associations and the lawyers that make up the bar associations. When I first started going to the Governor's Council meeting as an observer monitor a couple of years ago, it was quite apparent to me that the only people who were at the hearings and who were in fact welcome in an unofficial sort of way at a public hearing were members of the bar, other judges, and people connected in that way to the legal industry. the general public did not, by and large, go to these meetings. Since then, I think that the efforts by the Fatherhood Coalition and people like Rich in his efforts have encouraged more of the general public to attend the meetings. But the problem is the process is still secretive. In other words, people who are becoming judges fill out an application, as Rich mentioned, but none of that information is available until after the vote is taken. So we can't really examine these people, their backgrounds, and what they may or may not do as a judge until they're already confirmed. Once they're confirmed, they're on there for life. So the whole process needs serious revision.
So with both of you running for for governor's council, what plans do you have to change or reform the way it's operating now?
Well, to start, we really need people that, we're going to ask more detailed questions. We're going to delve deeper into making sure that there is not only no conflicts or interest or bias in lawyers coming up to be judges, perceived or real. So right now it's really an old boy network. All of the lawyers that are out there. Well, just for example, a couple weeks ago we were at a hearing, a contentious hearing for a person named David Aptaker, who was coming up before the Governor's Council. And he had misrepresented and not listed a couple donations he made to disgraced political candidates. He brought in 50 members of the legal community to support him and testify him. When you really look at that, all of those lawyers, if he becomes a judge, are eventually going to appear before him. So it's an inherent conflict of interest that each one of those people have, because if they don't stand up and support him, right, or they're not on a list, he had a list of 50 or 60 people, then what's going to happen when they go to court before the judge, right? So none of those people really, should even be testifying. So, neither Joe nor I are lawyers. We both, when we signed, got on the ballot for Governor's Council, we had to get 1,000 certified signatures, and we each got about 1,500, and we probably talked to 3,000 or 4,000 people. And since then, we've been talking to different groups. And by and large, people will ask, "Well, you're not a lawyer," But what we need more non-lawyers on there, people that have common sense, that really can see, and use common sense, right, to see what's going to happen with these people and to protect, the citizens of the Commonwealth. There is so much in the judicial system that needs to be changed.
It's kind of...
If I just may point out, Rich is here, and he's running in District 2, which is Natick, Framingham, down towards the Attleboro area. And I'm running in District 1, which is all of southeastern Massachusetts and the Cape and the Islands. And there's a third candidate, Mike Franco, who's running in District 8, which is western Massachusetts. Now, the three of us are running because we felt very strongly that, again, the way that families, in particular men and fathers, are being treated in the courts is completely wrong. And the machinery is just chugging along as if there's no problem, as if there are blinders on, living in a twilight zone. There needs to be real change. And those are the three candidates that we hope people will support in the election.
As part of Governor's Council, what type of control do you have to make sure that judges are well qualified to serve on the bench? What steps would you take to ensure that those process and the peoples that are paying these particular people are protected, to make sure that they are going to get a judge that's going to protect due process, the rights to be equal, civil rights violations?
Well, I think one of the things is just to delve into the background a little bit more and look more at the types of, well, in one way is to look at the types of clients that the lawyer bring on. If they only bring on men, or if they only bring on women, or if they only represent certain subsections of the community while they're practicing as a lawyer, does that then give you a good feeling about that they will be unbiased when they are a judge and they have complete control and authority over the people in the courtroom? Right? I don't think it does. And I do not think that they are looking at that one specific issue, I think, is a very, very big issue. Right? Once you're a judge, you're sitting on that bench, you have complete control over what happens to the people that are in your courtroom. You can, and there are some good judges out there, but there also are a lot of bad judges out there. And there are judges that do not follow the law. And there is no consequence. They have judicial immunity. They can do anything they want on the bench and pretty much get away with it, right?
So judges do have immunity in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? They do.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
If I might just add something to what Rich just said, which is I think even if someone is a capable person, very well intentioned, and has all the right skills to be a judge when he or she is first appointed, the problem is they're there for life. As a counselor, I would ask the nominees who are appearing and applying to be judges to voluntarily commit to have a term limit on their time as a judge. We can't do it officially because there's a constitutional acceptance of life tenure for judges. But I think that any person, no matter what job you do in life, it gets tiring. It wears on people, and to have, particularly in probate court, where you have a conveyor belt of misery going before you every day, you just know that the people who are sitting as a judge in those situations are not going to be looking at the individuals with fresh eyes day after day. And so I think there should be a limit on the time people spend. It would be a voluntary thing. They wouldn't be required, but I think if they committed to do that and they didn't, they would be known as not being very trustworthy.
Is there due process and civil, the rights to be equal and protected under the law? Do you see that in the court systems? I know you guys are involved in court watching and so on. How are these judges educated? Are they educated through any process?
Well, there is some minimum level of process that the judges go through. I'm not up to speed on exactly what that is. But I can tell you that there is this due process does not always happen in the courts. Basically, there's really a confederacy or that goes on. Now, you have to remember that judges were lawyers, and there is a brotherhood or sisterhood. Actually, I think there are maybe more women judges nowadays. And so, from my point of view, there's control that we have on nominating new judges. I would also like, if I get elected, to use that as a bully pulpit to make, hopefully, other changes in the court system, one of which is term limits. I fully support term limits. That would be a major process. It would take a long time to get through. But I think term limits of 6 or 7 years is more than enough time for anyone to be a judge. And I agree with Joe, especially the burnout that happens. And when you have complete authority and complete power, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. After a period of time, you just have to be less effective. And some of the judges get absolutely despotic in the courtroom. And if you sneeze the wrong way, you can get contempt of court. You can get thrown out. You can get put in jail. So that, along with, some very basic things, where when you go to court, everyone shows up at 9 o'clock. Okay, and people are paying lawyers $200, $300, $400. And the majority of people are there till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So you're paying 3 or 4 hours of time at $300 an hour or $200 an hour, and you're in front of the judge for 5 minutes. Now, that seems like a very that's easy to fix, right? Just some people show up at 9, some show up at 10. There'll be overlap. But what will that do? That will reduce the amount of money that the lawyers make. Do the judges want to do that? Because all of their friends are lawyers, right? So if they actually made that very common sense change, then all of those lawyers would lose a lot of money.
I get knocked